Welcome to Blue Talks.
Thank you. My name is Darius Ross, and one of the number one things I must say up front is that I'm the last person you want to hear if you're a corporate exec, and the first person you want to hear when it comes down to being on your corporation. Because one of the number one things that I do is crisis management. I'm the ghost that makes sure when all these little problems start happening, you call me in and I make them go away. Now, you'll understand during my talk as to why I've got a specialization at that. Number one thing of it is, I was probably 5, 6 years old, right? And my 6-year-old friend, we were in a classroom, and at the end of the day, he takes all my pencils. So he takes all my pencils away, and I cordially walk over to the pencil sharpener, sharpen the pencils, take his hand, get over the back of him, yow! Make a point. No more bullying. So from that point forth, all the way through Catholic school until we get to high school, no more bullying. Everybody knew that he wasn't the kid to mess with. But get to teenage years, right? I'm going to a seminary, right? Going to be a priest. Now the interesting part about that is this is a different environment. So all of a sudden you're the scrawny kid, you didn't have any background, anything else. So you're getting locker slammed and all this kind of thing. So what happens there is I learned about Muay Thai, which is a martial arts that's in Thailand. So here I am in elementary school, being bullied around, high school. Every single day I got this kid that's throwing rocks at me, every single day. So this one particular day I decided enough of the rocks. I pick up a brick, hurl the brick through the window. Pizza guy, local neighbor, destroys the window. Now all of a sudden we have a problem. Now my parents are involved, I'm gonna get all this spanking, all this kind of thing. So fast forward, we get to high school again, my dad gets laid off probably my senior year. At the end of the moment, that was an interesting moment because I didn't want to go to this public school. So no other choice. But because of the fact I had a situation where I was actually put in a place whereas you have no other choice but to fight, right? So all of a sudden now it's either gang violence, become a member of a gang, or learn how to fight well. So all of a sudden you got to find the biggest guy on the block, and this is Chicago now. So this is a different time period. This is the 1980s, this is the crack epidemic. This is a time period when gang violence was just the norm. During that time period, I lost 200 friends in gang violence. 200. You went to 200 funerals. Every single week there's a funeral. You think it was bad now? In the last 10 years, Chicago has had 10,000 kids die between the ages of 4 and 18. Reality check, right? So when people don't understand gang violence, I can understand it. You're watching your friends bleed out. You're watching some friends whereas bullet holes, you're hiding behind windows, cars, whatever else. This is the reality check of Chicago. Now, fast forward to being in crisis management. How I got into crisis management was because of the fact all the things that I dealt with as a young adult and so forth created that environment. Then you become a parent. Interesting situation. Become a parent, and at age 24, my first kid's mom, she had postpartum depression. Now for ladies that understand that, it takes you to a place where you never could imagine that you want to be around the kid. It either makes you suicidal or it makes you want to get violent with that baby. So for the first 3 years, I had to become Mr. Dad inadvertently. Now, if you don't understand what being Mr. Dad is, you understand really quick. Kid wants to turn around and be succulent on your breast. You're like, no, wrong one. But now you have to understand diapers. You have to understand how to make sure that they stay healthy, the milk, the whole 9 yards. It took a toll on the work environment. So all of a sudden then, between that and having a fire at my house at the time, you're now homeless. But here's the interesting part about being homeless. I decided at a point in time when the insurance company is saying, well, guess what? We're not going to repair overnight. So now all of a sudden you got to go in here and figure out what you're going to do. You can't hire any workers because they're not giving you any upfront cash. They have something that's called ALE, which is assisted living. And then they have the environment whereas you have to actually pay out of pocket to get the work started before they give you the first installments. So guess what? Sledgehammer, crowbars, etc. I gut the entire house, 3-story house by myself. Dumpsters outside. Gutting the entire house, making the house back to normal. In the meantime, I got a conference room table. I sleep on the conference room table. In the meantime, there was no refrigerator. What did I have? A cooler box. You put all the food in the cooler box, you make the best of it. Meantime, I've got a mom that's staying at that time with her sister, and I've got a kid here that I'm babysitting him and maintaining him and taking him back and forth to school. So you learn all these things through the process of crisis. Then I get involved in buying a business. Okay, I buy the first business, so far so good. Second business doesn't go so well. So now I find myself trying to figure out how to deal with bankruptcy, personal bankruptcy, and then dealing with creditors. One of the number one things in creditors is they get you by the balls and they tell you up front, I got you. Well, this particular creditor, which happened to be a major institution in Chicago, says to me, guess what? Tell you what we're gonna do. We're gonna turn around and foreclose. I say, good luck. If you lose $1 million, it's your problem. If I lose $1 million, I got nothing to lose. So he looks at me, he says, either you a damn fool or you crazy, but there's no way on earth you're gonna call that bluff. I said, okay, let's see. We get into court. Lo and behold, we get into court. The judge says, what do you want to do? I said, I don't have anything to lose. He looks over there at me, the lawyers, and the other lawyers on the other side, and they're going, you know what? We're gonna back down. So from that began my crisis management. I began to realize how to help people get through bankruptcy by being able to understand that the creditor's whole perspective is bluffing. And through that whole process became the process of the dark moments, okay? Once you start really realizing how good you are in life, sometimes you make mistakes, and that mistakes is hubris. So I understood what hubris was early on. Like some of the basketball players and some of the rappers do now these days, they find themselves in situations where they don't really understand how their mind and their spirit can get kind of out of hand. So when you have a lot of money and all of a sudden you have a lot of power, things go wrong and you can find yourself in some interesting situations. So as a result of that, one of the darkest moments was finding out yourself, well, now you're at the top of your game, so to speak. You're doing well. Then you find yourself in a situation where you buy into a business, but you didn't realize this business was necessarily financed. You knew, but you didn't want to know that this business was being financed by drugs. So all of a sudden now, your first time you get caught, you find yourself like, oh, damn, what am I gonna do now? So now you're caught, FBI is giving you a choice. You got two decisions. Decision number one is to get out of business. Decision number two is to continue business as usual. Well, being an entrepreneur, which is part of my second part of my next talk, I decided, well, keep doing what you're doing. So you get caught a second time. Now you're in front of a judge and the judge says, okay, want to be an entrepreneur, real smart. Now what do you want to do? Now this shows you how faith and blessings come into hand, which is part of this whole talk about how I cursed at God and he taught back. So I'm sitting in a holding cell, right? And one of my neighbors happened to be a sheriff and he says, don't worry about it, you'll be fine. So I'm sitting in this holding cell and all of a sudden I hear these guys over here screaming. I'm like, what are they screaming about? They're behind a window shade and it's all covered up. And the guy says, they're getting tested for HIV and the whole 9 yards. You know, they're testing the penis. So I'm like, so how are they doing it? He says, they take a stick and they stick right up in the penis. Oh, no. So I'm praying, Father, Son, Holy Spirit, Father, Son, Holy Spirit. Please, God, wherever you at, please show up. So lo and behold, okay, this is how funny it is. The other guy comes out, another guy comes out, last guy comes out. And I'm like, oh, wow, this is over. So he goes, Ross. I'm like, okay, this is my turn. I'm like, okay, ooh, this is gonna be bad. So he says, you're free to go, right? So as I'm walking across the cell, guy from the top tier, because the way Cook County Jail is, there are 4 tiers, right? The guy goes, hey, fresh fish is on tonight. Oh, no, it's not. Not tonight. You don't get none tonight. I'm sorry. So with that experience, that taught me no more entrepreneurialism and the legal basis. You now have to be legit. So that began my process of going legitimate and staying focused on business as usual, because the company that I had created was a paging company. The only problem is we weren't paying for the pagers. We were getting the pages, but we weren't paying for them. So that was part of the problem. So from that, I started getting hired by people that were in the underground economy business, we'll call it, and utilizing what they were doing and helping them get out of situations. So I became their, I guess you would call it concierge, as the Italians call it for the mafia. So I started being able to help them get out of binds. So from that point forth, a lot of very important families started wanting and needing the services of crisis management. So like that Olivia Pope that you see on TV, I understand exactly what that is because that's what I do. So from all that began the process of understanding how when you are going through things in life, understand and have faith, because I can tell you from personal experience, some of the darkest moments were just that. You know, looking at success was one thing. You know, it's like wonderful when you have a lot of money, but the downside to it is with money breeds contempt, because you find yourself in a space where you can't imagine all the things that you can do with money and power until you have it, and then you don't realize how to be very, how do I say, shrewd and smart with it. And so the success came, those opportunities of, okay, how do you turn around and make sure that you don't find yourself in a bind anymore? And so for me, one of the biggest things was being able to figure out how to utilize your experiences and opportunities and give it to young people. Because one of the biggest things with young people is they don't really understand that all these things that you have as far as trappings come to a moment of, and I've had that own moment myself, where you're sitting there, and I forgot who it was just recently just did it. You're sitting someplace and you have all these things, but you're still not happy. And you're still talking to God going, where are you? Where are you? And in my particular case, it was a moment of sitting someplace and recognizing that you got everything, and now you have to realize the blessings that you have. Because the thing for me was, I'm a member of the NRA, right? So it's wonderful, some of the things that the NRA does, but there's a downside to it. There's that moment when you say to yourself, you get everything that you need, and now you have to be wise, okay? And I had that moment whereas it's like I have everything I need and everything's perfect, but then you're saying to yourself, there's something missing. And then you realize, you know what? I've gotten everything that I want, but now there's one problem, it's me, I'm still the self problem. So one of the things was actually going to a gun cabinet and looking at it and thinking to myself, would I be better off not here, or would I be better off making a decision? So you're looking at it, and it just so happened that my phone started buzzing, and Deion Sanders was on there with what he was going through, right? And he talked about how this highway trooper pulled alongside of him as he was going on the Pacific Coast Highway and said to him, "You're Deion Sanders." And he said he was about to drive over the cliff to kill himself. And I thought to myself, you know what? What I'm thinking to do is not worth doing it, because now you've got everything, but then you're still not satisfied. So I realized self-help and happiness comes in just that thing. You have to realize once you have all the things in life that you need, there's a moment in time in life where things just change. And things are not necessarily going bad, but there's something that's wrong that you're missing. And it's actually valuing yourself to a point where you realize all the things that you're missing are right there in-house. So that's why when I turned the topic of cursing God, it was just that. You're going, where are you? And he's going, I never left you in the first place. It was on you. You just didn't find yourself. So the most important thing I can leave with the audience is, no matter what you get, no matter how you achieve, always remember you got to stay focused on what your needs are. And sometimes the needs are just you recognizing, don't get too far beyond where your path should teach you. Thank you.